My mic is on. We are back. This is Steve Sanson and, oh my God, it's Jim Jonas.
Yeah, I'm back. Didn't think I was going to leave for good, did you?
Jim, you've been gone for how long? Irma, how long has Jim been gone?
I think it's 6. So, yeah.
No, I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah, I think it's almost 6.
Yeah, about 6 weeks. I had how many special guest co-hosts I had in here?
Yeah, I'm back now, though. We had to do the endorsement interviews, and then I had to work last week. So
yeah. Is that going to be a off again, on again thing, or what?
I won't know for sure. I'll talk to you after the show.
You don't want to talk to me on air so thousands of people can listen?
No, we have a very important guest, so I think we should spend more time with our guests.
Ooh, that was smooth. That's smooth, Jim Jonas. You know, speaking of candidates endorsement, we have this one candidate, perennial candidate, I might add, Lou Toomin, who's running for Assembly District 15, decides that he was going to hang signs that says "endorsed by veterans in politics."
Yeah,
and we didn't endorse him.
No, well, it sounds like something Lou Toomin would do.
We endorsed what's her name, Megan Herrett, Heryet. Herrett? Yeah, that sounds about right. But I know what he's going to say. He's going to say, you know something? Those are from last year or last time I ran for office. But you know something? Let's say it was. What's he doing hanging it?
I don't know. I'm just impressed he's actually hanging signs this time.
And you know something? The signs that says endorsed by veterans in politics doesn't even have sun damage to it. There's no type of damage to the signs. Nothing. Those are brand new signs that came right from the manufacturer up on somebody's gate that says endorsed by veterans politics. Candidates out there, if you have anything that says endorsed by veterans in politics and you're not, and Veterans in Politics International Inc. owns the name Veterans in Politics, we will sue you. So if I was you, I'll just take them all down. And Lou Toomin, whatever your excuse might be, take those signs down. Because I don't think you want to get a cease and desist letter from one of our attorneys.
No, he probably doesn't.
Anything else, Jim?
No, except for the fact that we were having lunch and something kind of strange was brought to my attention that cops are. I mean, maybe this might not be exact policy, but we have police officers out there that when one shoots, they all shoot. That way it's harder to go after one police officer, and I find that very unfortunate. Yeah,
I found out from the last shooting that they had with the 5 officers that opened fire on the women, not saying that she was right or wrong because I wasn't there. All there were speculations that says she didn't have a weapon, and then the cops that says she did. But I found out that if one cop shoots, all the cops have to shoot. Basically, it's harder to go after 5 cops than it is to go after one. So,
and that's unfortunate. That's stuff like that is what makes people afraid of law enforcement. And you shouldn't be afraid of law enforcement. I mean, they're there for your protection to protect you. So, yeah. I think they might want to rethink that policy.
Probably they should. I think Henderson, has a better policy than Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, but that's a whole different story. But I just want to let everybody know our guest today is going to be Buck Bedard. He is a Lieutenant General, United States Marine Corps, 3-star. Don't go away, folks. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. We'll be back momentarily.
My name is Sean Havlin, United States Army 1st Ranger Battalion. I've been wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm supporting Kenneth Wegner for Congress. Ken is an Army veteran who was wounded in the First Gulf War, and his son is fighting in Afghanistan. When you go to WegnerForCongress.com, you will see that he is the only candidate running for Congress who refuses all money from lobbyists, PACs, and special interest groups. Like Ken, I believe our government needs to take the leash off our soldiers or bring them home and place them on our borders to help win the war on drugs. In Iraq, we used foreign-made equipment. Now, who do you think will make a better product to help protect our soldiers? Foreign factories or American factories? Kenneth Wegner's right. All government contracts should be made in the USA, creating jobs for our economy. To prove that Rangers lead the way, I am donating $500 to Kenneth Wegner. You too can make a difference. Donate what you can. Tell your friends. Get involved.
I'm Colonel Ed Bridges, United States Air Force retired. I'm supporting Kenneth Wegner.
I'm Sergeant Matt Penny, a former recon Marine.
This is Dick Marcinko, Commander of the United States Navy, founder of SEAL Team 6 and Red Cell. I'm an American. I'm for Ken Wegner.
My name's Kenneth Wegner, and I authorize this message. Are you a business owner struggling during these economic times? Please listen up. How would you like to put your business and services in front of every resident and business in the Las Vegas Valley for less than a penny per home? Yes, that's right. I said less than 1 cent per home and business. And how would you like to have a dynamic and exciting online presence with the major search engines? How about an online video for your business and a fully optimized website with absolutely no setup fee? Hi, my name is George. If you are interested in these and other services that can make your phone ring with clients and prospects, then call me at 702-296-8394. Just call George at 702-296-8394. Thank you.
Hey, listen up. If you're a military veteran, if you're related to a veteran, or if you know a veteran, you'll enjoy the Veterans Reporter radio show every Thursday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. with me. I'm your host, Chuck N. Baker. Every week, we will explore veterans' issues and we'll have guests who will talk about topics of interest to and about the veterans community. And if you don't listen, you'll have to give me 20 push-ups.
Veterans in Politics takes a proactive approach to provide you, the veteran, with the political voice for which you fought and served.
Veterans in Politics is becoming the premier veteran organization of the 21st century, with political candidate interviews, insight, and endorsements.
Public speaking engagements in support of American values.
Radio shows to keep you updated on the latest in veteran and military support operations.
Providing job placement and business support.
Go to veteransinpolitics.com today and do your part in defending liberty.
We are back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jones of Veterans in Politics. We're here live in studio with Buck Bedard, Lieutenant General, United States Marine Corps, 3-star general. For those folks that don't know what a lieutenant general is, he has 3 stars on his collar. General Bedard, how you doing, sir?
Very good. Thanks a lot for having me this afternoon. I'm glad to be with you.
Could you give us a bio about yourself?
Well, let me try to put it fairly short for you.
Is it going to take up the whole show?
No, it won't. I came out of the University of North Dakota. I was a freshman coach there, and decided I want to go to Vietnam. And my intent was to join the Marine Corps for 3 years. And I did a tour in Vietnam as an infantry officer, and came home to a mess in our country, a mess both in the military with a lot of racial problems, a draft going on, partial draft going on, and of course a country that was very upset about the Vietnam War. And after spending about a year in the Corps, after I returned home, I decided if you want to be part of the solution, then you got to stick around and try to fix some things. And from there, I ended up spending 37 and a half years in the Marine Corps, and very fortunate opportunities. Commanded everything from a rifle platoon of about 30 Marines to a Marine Expeditionary Force of 45,000. Was a deputy commandant for operations for the Marine Corps when I left the Corps. And just spent no 2 half days the same in 37 and a half years. And just a wonderful opportunity. Would do it again tomorrow. And met some great, great warriors along the way that served with me, for me, and those that were above me. And I will tell you, it's a tremendous honor to be sitting here today and say that I'm a retired Marine, but once a Marine, always a Marine.
Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
General, first of all, I want to say thank you for your service. I'm sure you have a very impressive, I don't know how many medals you probably have, or how many medals do you have? What type of medals do you have, General? Sorry. I'm looking at Colonel Tom Check to my peripheral over here. That's why I said that. I
think without getting down into details and counting them, probably maybe 30, 31.
What would be your most, the medal that you would cherish the most out of all 30 of those?
I think the Combat Action Ribbon, which is a ribbon that's only earned in combat and under fire. Right.
General, I have a few questions for you, and I'm sure Jim does too. You've been in the Marine Corps for 37 years. You reached a star of a 3-star general. How do you feel about don't ask, don't tell?
First of all, I think the comments I'm going to make you today are really my comments. And
sure.
I think that's important. I felt the policy that we had in place was a pretty good policy and seemed to work fairly well. I think we've been asked to do something here. Our young people in uniform have been asked to do something. I think the ruling on how it's going, how well it's going, what the impact's going to be is still yet to be determined, to be quite honest with you. But I think anything that makes the military become some kind of a social classroom where we try things out is not a good way to go. And especially with an all-volunteer force, to be able to place policy on you that has to be adopted, I think is very, very difficult. I think the force has done very well accepting it, but as I said, the real aspects of it, I think, and the real how far we're going to feel it down inside the bowels of our services is yet to be determined.
What was the last combat mission you served?
I guess it was on the streets of Somalia.
Okay.
And that was both before and after Black Hawk Down. I spent about 18 months there. And then the other one I would say, because it really is combat related, I was in the Pentagon on 9/11.
Okay. Could you explain to us about the rules of engagement back then while you were in Somalia and the rules of engagement in today's war?
Of course, in the theater in Somalia, the rules of engagement were I would say were very favorable, and the interpretations were very, very straightforward. And that is, if someone's armed, has a small arms weapon, for example, and is ordered to put it down and doesn't, you can engage him.
Okay.
If he's carrying a crew-served weapon or has a crew-served weapon mounted on his vehicle or platform, you can engage it without asking. And that served us very, very well in that environment. And I think the rules of engagement today, we're in a very, very difficult situation in Afghanistan, and the situation is dealing with a large civilian population, an enemy that has figured out how to embellish itself inside that civilian population, and use civilians very effectively in their protection. And the engagement in those opportunities become very, very difficult for youngsters on the ground.
Do you think that we should pull out of Afghanistan right now? And how do you feel about us getting into combat in Iraq as well?
No, I don't think we should come out yet.
And why is that?
I think first of all, I think there's a couple points. First of all, I think we ought to listen to the commanders that are over there and what they want to do. And General John Allen has recently come back to the States and talked about where we've got Al-Qaeda, the damage we've done to the infrastructure and the organization of Al-Qaeda, and where we're at with developing the security forces, both on the police side and the military side. And I've been over there several times. In fact, I'm getting ready to go next week again. And
to where, General?
I'm going to Afghanistan. And every time I go over there, I'm impressed with the changes that have occurred in the country. I'm impressed with the military that I meet, both on the police force side and the Army side, and the development that's going on with these forces and the capabilities. And I think we have to listen to our commanders about saying, hey, as we start to do the drawdown, what's a smart way of doing it? What kind of things do we need to leave to continue to help the folks over there? I don't think we should be in any way, shape, or form fooled or diminished in the fact that the terrorist threat against this country and against Westerners will go away over time. But I think what we want to do is make sure that these camps for training terrorists, etc., are not brought back in great quantities, for example, in Afghanistan. And that the Afghan people have a way of controlling that with their own capabilities. And that's what we're coming with the development of their security forces.
So you're going to Afghanistan as a consultant?
Yes, I am. Okay. And I'm going over to visit, primarily going over to visit the British brigade that's over there that I've been working with in the UK. Okay. And we'll certainly want to go over and try to see General Greganis and the Marines that are over there as well at Leatherneck.
There was a conspiracy theory going around about Osama bin Laden, saying that the whole thing was made up and he wasn't really killed there. He was killed somewhere else, or he's been dead for years, and putting the body in the water in 48 hours after the proposed alleged killing of Osama bin Laden. That's all a farce. What do you have to say to these folks that are thinking like that?
I don't believe any of it.
Okay. How do you feel about, and I don't know if I have the abbreviation correctly, but it's called the NDAA, or taking American citizens that's in foreign land that's being charged or allegedly charged for terror to have no trial by jury or anything like that. How do you feel about that law? Jim, am I pronouncing it right? What is it, NDAA? Because I know you guys were asking a lot about that while you were doing the interviews. But do you understand basically what I'm talking about, General? The policy that's in place, or the policy that they propose in place to execute Americans for treason or terrorist threat without a trial by jury. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
It's basically, I don't know the exact abbreviations of it either. Karen had brought this up. But basically what it's trying to do, and I think they want to do it with the military as well, is just get it, it's like one world order. It's like a world court, and it doesn't matter what your native country of origin is. It's all over the world. If you're found to do something wrong, they wouldn't send you back to the United States for trial. They would do it right there in their own country.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but basically it sounds like something I wouldn't agree to.
Okay. Isn't that a violation of the Constitution or our civil rights here in the United States?
Well, it is in the United States, but when you get into other countries and cross other borders, the rules seem to be different, and they're interpreted by the country, not by our country in many cases. And I think that's the thing we're talking about.
Well, General, first I want to thank you for your service too, and sorry if I'm a little nervous. I typically don't get nervous, but I'm a little nervous today.
Because you're a 3-star, General. You're making Jim over there just shivering.
Well, one of the questions I have for you is a lot of people have brought up lately that we're too quick to get into, too quick to send troops into foreign combat, and one of the ways maybe to be able to cut back on some of that is if we had some kind of law that forced people to serve, maybe not necessarily a draft, but you would have to spend at least a year or 2 years after you got out of high school in some kind of role, whether it would be in the military or whether it would be just service. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good idea, or is just the all-volunteer military working well?
First of all, I comment on the all-volunteer force. I think it's probably the finest, most professional, well-trained force that our country has ever seen. And I would think that our great country will continue down that vein. You know, I several years ago, I took a look at did a little study and some reading on Ataturk in Turkey, and taking a look at compulsory service to your country. And when Ataturk became the leader of Turkey, he decided that they would have compulsory service. And I'll kind of paraphrase a few things here, but he thought it would make better citizens. He would make young men better husbands, and embellish the thoughts and the support of the country. And I think compulsory service of some kind could be very beneficial to our country. I think the programs would have to be looked at very carefully of what we do and what kind of service they would provide. Right. But I think there's real merit in that.
Okay, because I know any employer that I've ever talked to, one of the reasons why they want to hire vets is just because veterans tend to be a lot more professional, a lot more disciplined than the average citizen. So that's why I wanted to ask you that question.
General, how do you feel about Guantanamo Bay? When they have the prisoners over there, you think that should be something that we should just keep doing, or do you think that it was right for the Obama administration to shut it down?
I don't have any comment on that.
Okay. How do you feel about the current presidential administration when regards to policies how our troops are being handled, and how the war is being handled in Afghanistan, and how the war was handled in Iraq.
Well, first of all, as a military professional, and the way our Constitution certainly has established the hierarchy in Washington, as a military man, you often make your feelings and your comments known, but once orders are given, you march off and carry them out. And I think that's a very important aspect of how our government is in fact been established and how we operate. I will tell you this: I think one of the most important things is that we are the greatest nation in the world, and we should never lose sight of that. And the other aspect is that many other countries in the world today look for the United States to lead the way, and once we decide we're going to do something, then others join in, and that's a very important aspect. For example, Somalia in 1991, we were the first country in there, and within 6 to 8 months, there were 31 countries, I think, that joined us. And it was all because the United States figured this was an important thing to go do, and that we would follow suit. I think the other aspect is having spent time in the Pentagon, when major decisions are taken to commit forces, it's not a decision that's taken lightly by anybody. There are tremendous consequences that go with that. We are talking about the crown jewels of our country being committed, and our sons and daughters, and that's a very important aspect. And what's at stake is always a question that's being asked. And I go back to my comment again on terrorism. I don't think we're going to ever stop fighting this war on terrorism. At some level, at some time, there are people out there that want to destroy our way of life and want to destroy who we are and want to destroy this great country of ours. And we should never lose sight of that.
General, what would you say to, seems to be kind of a growing sentiment in the country now because of the amount of lost treasure with the Iraq conflict and with the war in Afghanistan as well. Now we're starting to see a lot of politicians come out with, we should pull back, we have too many foreign bases, we should cut back in defense spending in general. What do you say to those people that are worried that we have maybe too large of a foreign footprint and we should pull back and be a little more domestic about things?
Well, first of all, I think the price on national security is something that we always have to consider, and the criticality of it. I've always believed in being out and being forward. And the best defense for a country is to be forward. And it doesn't mean defending San Francisco or defending Mayport, Florida. It means being out in the world. And I think that's where I would always come from. And I think as we start to see potential cutbacks in the forces, the amount of force that we're going to have engaged and out there working throughout the world with our allies is going to decrease. And I think ultimately we're going to pay a price for doing that.
There has been some folks that don't think the United States should be part of the United Nations anymore, because they said the United Nations don't do anything for the United States, and a lot of countries that are within the United Nations usually vote against the United States, such as China and Russia. How do you feel about, do you think the United States should be still part of the United Nations, or do you think that we should just leave the United Nations like some people think?
We absolutely need to be part of the United Nations.
And why is that, John?
Well, it's because of the influence that you have in all the other countries that are part of the UN. And granted, there's going to be votes in the UN that don't necessarily go our way, but I'll tell you, the opportunity to have your voice heard with that many nations and the influence that we have, I think is absolutely critical. And I would certainly not see our country leaving the UN.
Do you think that anybody that runs for president of the United States should have some type of military background, since they're going to be a commander-in-chief of the U.S. forces?
I think to have that experience is a wonderful thing. Is it absolutely mandatory? No. But I would say that the person who is going to become the President of the United States has a very, very clear understanding of the duties and responsibilities that he or she would have as the Commander-in-Chief, and the relationship with the Joint Chiefs, and the importance and criticality of listening to their advice.
There has been many veterans that are returning back from the combat theater, suffering from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. There was a Marine in Maryland probably about a year ago. He was shot at by an off-duty police officer. Shots fired was 13. 6 of the shots hit. This off-duty officer is now in prison for this. There have been veterans in California that's been shot by police. Right here, we just had a recent one on December 12th, which is an Army veteran of the Gulf War, Stanley Gibson, shot in the back of the head by a police officer. How do you feel being a veteran and served in combat? How do you feel about these veterans that are returning home to survive combat and come home and get killed by their own police force?
Well, first of all, I would say that trying to identify who our young people are that need help when they return home is a very important aspect of this, and trying to get them the proper help as early as we possibly can, especially in those cases we've identified. I think it's an absolute tragedy when a youngster brings back some of the scars of war, and they affect him emotionally or physically, and he ends up out on the street and ends up in a confrontation with local police. I think that's an absolute tragedy. Does it happen? Yes. Are there cases documented where it's happened? Yes. But I think every effort ought to be given to identify our young people that need help, and I think we're doing a lot better job on that. But I will tell you, some of these folks that need help, we won't realize who they are for years to come.
And what do you say to that, General?
Well, I say because some of it takes time and boils inside people, affects people in different ways. The timeline is different. I don't think there are any two cases that are exactly the same.
Well, General, I wanted to switch gears a little bit. How far should we go to stop Iran from becoming a nuclear nation?
Boy, Jim, that's a really switching the gears right there.
We've gone from the tactical and emotional to the strategic here. I think there are a lot of things working right now to try to at least curtail or certainly to monitor the situation very, very carefully. There's a lot of pressure being placed from various aspects around the world, and I think we need to continue to look at that for a while. I think anybody having a nuclear capability other than nuclear power for power's sake inside countries is a very challenging thing, especially in that part of the world. And I think there are a lot of people looking at it very, very closely.
Well, on that note, let's take a commercial break. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Don't go away, folks. We'll be back with Buck Bedard, Lieutenant General, United States Marine Corps.
What are you doing online?
I'm checking out the belly dance class we took last week.
Where's it at?
TakeBackYourBelly.com.
That's right.
We worked our arms.
We worked our abs.
We worked so hard and had a blast.
No matter what your shape or size, come belly dance, you'll be surprised.
For class schedule and location, log on to TakeBackYourBelly.com or call 219-3151.
Hello, my fellow Nevadans. Are you tired of listening to the same old rhetoric from politicians? I know I am. And that's why I'm running for Congress in Nevada's 4th District as a conservative. I'm Sidney Zeller, a retired Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel and veteran of 3 wars. I'm a proven leader and a man of honor, integrity, and character. My focus is on bringing economic prosperity to the 4th District. For more information on my positions, please visit my Facebook and website, SidZellerForCongress.com, paid for by Sid Zeller for Congress. This public service announcement is brought to you by Veterans in Politics International. The Veterans in Politics mission is to teach, educate, organize, and awaken our veterans and their families to select, support, and vote intelligently for a better world, and to protect ourselves from our own governments and a culture of corruption, and to be the political voice for those in other groups that do not have one.
There are too many homeless veterans, and more help is needed from the VA. Every veteran service organization post should adopt a local homeless veteran.
The funding of VA medical centers is inadequate, and building a VA hospital in southern Nevada is moving at a slow pace. The budget has been flatlined for too many years. The VA is too quick to deny claims and too slow to help veterans gather records in support of claims.
Local politicians ignore veterans and their issues. They perceive a lack of organization among their local veterans and that it won't hurt them at election time. Veterans too often vote party, not veteran issues. All veterans should vote in every election.
The news media give inadequate coverage to veteran issues and events. You must send letters to the editor and voice this concern.
Please contact your members of Congress and Senate and urge them to co-sponsor key legislation in supporting our veterans.
Please support Veterans in Politics. And to get more information, go to www.veteransinpolitics.com.
Hello, Las Vegas. I'm Karen Steelman, president of Las Vegas Tea Party, bringing your voice to the air Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Are you tired of politics as usual? Do you want to be more involved? Do you want to put a stop to out-of-control government policies? On We the People, we will discuss the political topics of the day and find real solutions. No parties, no labels, just Americans. Be here Wednesdays at 7 p.m. with We the People on KLAV 1230 a.m., where your voice is heard.
We are back. This is Steve Sampson, Jim Jones for Veterans in Politics. We're here live in studio with General Buck Bedard from the United States Marine Corps, 3-star General. Jim.
Hey, for everyone out there listening, if you guys have any questions for the General and would like to call in, the call-in number is area code 702-483-4444. So if you have any questions, feel free to call in.
General, recently on the news, they're talking about downsizing the amount of troops in the Far East, particularly Okinawa. And I know I did a year and a half in Okinawa. I kind of like Okinawa. But how do you feel about downsizing those troops there? And I know people wanted to put troops on the border to keep the drugs out of the country and legal immigration for coming in. What's your take on those two issues, General?
Well, first of all, I'm very familiar with the Okinawa issue. And really the linchpin in the whole Okinawa business was to move our airfield at Fatima, which is in a very, very congested area of Okinawa. And the agreement was that before we would displace forces, is that, in fact, the Japanese would build us a new airstrip and a new air facility. And it was talked about that it would probably be on the island someplace, but probably over more by the 9th Marines area up at Schwab. To my knowledge, there's not been any dirt turned. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of plans submitted, and so on and so forth. But until that air facility was, in fact, established, would we start to move forces. I'm not a big fan of moving forces further back in the Pacific. When I say further back, I talk about further back from supporting Japan, further back from South Korea, because what it does is every time you move back in the Pacific, now you're dependent on strategic lift, and as we know, we never have enough of that. So moving forces back out of Okinawa, although it could happen, and there's some talk now that some of them may come to Guam, and some may come back to Hawaii. Those negotiations are ongoing, but I think you got to be closer to where you think you're going to be committed to really be overly effective. And so for that reason, I would say I want to stay as far forward as I can. That would be my feeling on it. Putting forces on the border inside of our own country has some legal ramifications to it, as I think you're well aware of. And in fact, we've used the Guard forces, which of course the governor can do in his own right and own prerogative. And we've done that, I think, both in Texas and Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. Do we ever put national troops, and do we ever put our active duty forces down onto the border? They could be in some support roles, but I wouldn't see that being an active role that we would commit our military forces to do.
You know, talking about Okinawa, General, that just a light just went off in my head. I know that we were all over the Philippines at one time in Clark, in Subic Bay and QB Point. Where did all those forces go?
As the negotiations with the Philippines broke down, and of course the Philippine government thought that the Russians were going to come in and establish a large base there, and I think that was about the same time as the wall came down. So they ended up with military forces being gone, U.S. forces being gone, and we without Soviet bloc forces or Soviet forces coming in as well. We are doing operations back in the Philippines again, out of Okinawa. We're training there. We're supporting some of their counterterrorism efforts as well. So we are back there, but not nearly in the amount that we used to be years ago.
What's your take on stolen valor? And I know recently it was before the U.S. Supreme Court. How do you feel about that? Should it be a crime for a person to impersonate being a military veteran or wearing medals that they didn't earn, just like impersonating a police officer?
Yeah, I feel very strongly about that. I got to tell you, when we present an award or a ribbon that's been earned by a young member who has raised his or her hand to support and defend the Constitution of our United States, and to really have, in fact, laid their life on the line to support that effort, and then we allow somebody to go ahead and wear one of these ribbons or medals that has not earned it, I think is an absolute travesty, and I think they should be put in jail.
Well, I don't need to talk about that anymore. When do you think we're going to see a female Marine commandant?
I would say you and I won't be sitting on this table.
Wow, you think it'll be that long?
I think it'll be quite a while, yeah.
Why do you say that?
No, I just do. I just think when you look at the proportionality of women Marines that we have in the Corps and the size of our Corps, I don't think that'll happen for a while.
General, I need to talk to you a little bit about military folks that are coming back from the combat theater that are running for office. And I know in veterans and politics, a lot of the candidates feel that if they're a veteran, we automatically should rubber stamp them, but that's not how we actually do it. We look for the best candidate, whether they be a veteran or not, as long as they're like-minded. Veteran is a plus, but like-minded is good. If they're going to go and push forth all the veterans' rights and laws and how we see things, we don't have a problem with that. But how do you feel about a lot of these folks that are coming back from the combat theater that are actually running for office? Because I know they have Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans for Congress. That's a group back east, and they've been endorsing a lot of candidates recently. What's your take on veterans being part of the political process?
I think what you're looking for in any individual who's running for office and for public office is what do they bring to the table? What are their qualities? And what makes them the kind of person that's going to represent the population that got them into office? I think that's the important aspect, and it's all about the total person. Being a veteran in many cases can be a plus because you've been exposed to a lot of things and you've seen a lot of things. And, I look back as being a MEF commander. When you command some 45,000 Marines and 20-some thousand married, and you're responsible for their well-being literally 24 hours a day, and they represent probably every state in the Union, include Canada and Mexico in some cases. You get a pretty good feel of people and concerns and what's right and what people need and what they want. And I think that's what politicians have to be very, very open to, is understanding who they're representing, what are the key issues, and what does a veteran bring to the table that makes he or she a better politician. I think that's where I would come down.
Then how come you're not in the race?
Why don't you ask me that next year?
Okay. So, General, what do you feel... See, I'm trying to phrase this exactly right, so...
You want me to help you?
Well, here's the thing. I've just noticed that when we were doing our panel interviews, I was asking people that were running for Senate how they interpreted the War Powers Act and if they thought it was constitutional. And none of the five knew what the War Powers Act was. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I think the War Powers Act was put into place to make sure there was some balance and commitment of forces, and that we had considered all the options and looked at what was the interest and the vital interests of our country in committing forces, and I think we continually do that when we take a look at commitment of forces. We started out. You take a look at the records going back 10 years, 11 years. About the commitment of people when we were attacked on 9/11 and the commitment of our forces, and then how that commitment waned over time by certain people who had voted adamantly that we should go to Iraq and we should go to Afghanistan, and I think there will always be debate about commitment of forces and to what effort, and I think that's a healthy thing in our country, but I think once you make a commitment that you're going to go do something, then you ought to follow through with that commitment and not change in the middle of it, especially when we talk about commitment to combat and commitment of our forces.
Okay.
The Marine Corps has established a new policy, and it's the tattoos from the elbow down. When did that policy come in effect, and why is it that they have to enforce this policy now?
I've never been a tattoo fan, I'll tell you that. And I think one of the things is that if I remember the regulation well, you couldn't have more than 3 tattoos. They couldn't be on the lower arm. They couldn't be observed in the neck, and that's because of wearing with the summer service uniform, and having a short sleeve shirt or having a shirt where the collar was exposed. And I'm all for that. I'm an anti-tattoo guy. I just got to tell you that. I've got a brother-in-law.
I take it you have no tattoos, John.
I have no tattoos, and I never will. I have a brother-in-law who's a dermatologist in Milwaukee, and he's got a couple of laser machines that he runs around the clock taking tattoos off people now. It's amazing. I think the trend is kind of going the other way, but as I said. I say I'm not a tattoo guy, but I got to tell you what, I have met a lot of our veterans from World War II and Korea and so on, and many of those guys wear tattoos, and they're very, very proud of them. And I'm just not a tattoo fan. I'm sorry.
I probably don't even have to ask you this question. Protesters at military funerals are probably going to know the answer, but the answer that I don't know is why is it that the media is not invited, so to speak, when these soldiers that and these Marines and these Air Force and these naval personnel that come back in casket, why is it that the media is not publicizing this so Americans would know that, one of our fallen troops are coming back. Because you hear so much. It's like the 17-year-old child that was shot in Florida, Trevon Cole is his name. You hear so much about this guy, but then we still have our own service members that are coming back in caskets, and you don't hear nothing about it. Why is it so silent? Why don't America know what's going on with our troops? A lot of Americans probably think we don't have any. All the troops came back because they're so ignorant. Why isn't the media spotlighting this?
Well, I would just say, I think the media in our country, depending which media you're talking about, has taken some very different routes. And what they choose to publicize, what they choose to say is important, and what they choose not to is very, very evident, depending where you go in the country today. And it's the same can be said of watching our various news media channels. And I think that's a very, very unfortunate thing. Everybody wants this war kind of, not everybody, but there's a lot of people that want this war to just go away and be forgotten. And as I said, the war on terrorism should never be forgotten.
So the media is not prohibited not to announce a fallen service member coming back?
No, absolutely not. But I think there's another side to that coin, and that is, respecting the rights of the family and those that are grieving for the loss, et cetera, and finding that balance, I think, is very important.
Going back to the police shootings, and I think that there's a lot of cops on the street right now are probably intimidated by a returning soldier or Marine, because their training probably so more advanced than theirs being a police officer. Do you think that maybe we should have ID cards, or take that back. Do you think that maybe on our driver's license it should say veteran on there, so maybe the police officer would use more of a diplomacy rather than a reactive state to identify that particular driver of that vehicle?
I think identifying the fact that a young man or woman is a veteran, I would certainly support that. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
But the other aspect I would say is that young people that are trained, whether they're on active duty or they're veterans, when they're stopped by a police officer or apprehended or stopped, even for a driver's license check, there's enough discipline inside of that young man and woman to know and to respect the law as well. So I think there's both sides of the street to look at.
Okay. That drives me into my next question. I don't know if you're familiar with the Veterans Court here in the state of Nevada. Back in 2009, my organization helped push the issue and got Veterans Court into law in 2009. And now it's kind of made its way up to Clark County, and the judges are starting to enact have Veterans Court within the legal system. And Veterans Court, I don't know if you know exactly how it works, but it's supposed to have a treatment instead of incarceration. How do you feel about Veterans Court all over the country? What's your take on that?
I'm not totally familiar with the program. What are you saying, that if somebody comes into court and he's a veteran, he or she could go to some rehabilitation?
Basically, they go through a rehabilitation program, and after they complete whatever the judge asked them to do, after they complete the course, their record is sealed and the case is dismissed. Basically, it's more of a treatment instead of locking them up, instead of an incarceration process.
Yeah. I think there's certainly some merit to it. I would say it's going to be dependent upon the individual and dependent upon what is the crime and what's the charge.
So what charge would you say would not be deserving of a Veterans Court?
I would say a serious criminal charge would not be.
Such as? I have my feelings of what I would say. Rape and molestation of children are one of my two top peeves, and maybe first degree murder, because you have to plan that out. But bar fights or road rages or even domestic violence, I would say that should be part of a veterans court process with the DUIs and the trespass and all of the other misdemeanor offenses.
Yeah, I could support that, but I would say this, that inside the veterans court and inside the rehabilitation process, a very close scrutiny of the individual to see if he or she is performing well, and if not, they serve their sentence.
What would you tell the families of returning veterans? Because statistically, it says that 66% of returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan are coming home to divorce, separation, custody battles. 66%. What would you tell the families of returning troops? What to look for to kind of get help for their loved ones when they come back from the combat zone?
First of all, I don't know where you're getting the figures of 66%. That seems pretty high to me. It does. But I think, I've been married for 42 years to the same bride. And I've got to tell you, being in the military, being committed, being involved in combat operations, being deployed, and maintaining stability in your family is a very, very challenging thing. And but I will also say that we have gotten so much better over the past several years of support to our family members and support organizations that are in place and so on and so forth. But I will tell you, I think the toughest thing when you come home from a deployment, the first thing, let's say for a husband, is not to grab a hold of the family again and take over like you were there yesterday. So how you come home, how the transition is done, how you perceived your loved ones, the kind of sharing that goes on initially is a very, very important thing to make sure that bond is still there. And if it's not, getting professional help as quickly as you possibly can, I think, is an important piece.
What are the signs that they should look for?
Well, empty houses, checkbooks being gone.
I'm talking about the family when the vet comes home.
Yeah, I think just first of all, trying to reestablish a relationship that was there before you left. And openness and discussion and conversation and being around them. And it's important for the family to realize, too, what the service member has gone through and the kind of distance sometimes that the service member needs when they first return home. There are cracks in the foundation of marriages and relationships and so on. And those cracks probably become a lot larger and are much more noticeable when you first come home.
General, I could go on another hour with you.
I'll come back sometime.
Anything you want to say before we end this interview?
No, I just great opportunity to sit down with you guys this afternoon and to share a few thoughts. And I would just like to, for all the listeners and everybody that's out there, God bless us. We're in the greatest country in the world. We've got the greatest military, and we ought to. Every time you see a young man or woman in uniform, you ought to stop and thank them for who they are, what they do, and thank them for the security that we enjoy.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, General. We really appreciate that. Jim?
No, I just want to say it was an honor. It really was. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim.
That's Buck Bedard, Lieutenant General, United States Marine Corps, retired 3-star. This is Steve Sampson, Jim Jonas.
Have I got one more word?
Yeah.
Are we done?
Go ahead, John.
No, I'd just like to remind everybody we're going to have a real treat here on 11 November, which is Veterans Day. We're going to have the Nevada birthday ball here in Las Vegas. And retired general by the name of Walt Boomer, who commanded 93,000 Marines in Desert Storm, was going to be our guest.
It's going to be, General.
It's going to be at
the Marine Corps Leatherneck Club?
No, the Leatherneck Club will be a cake cutting on the 10th, but the Orleans is going to be the birthday ball. And I hope to see you guys there.
All right, thank you so much, General. That's Buck Bedard, Lieutenant General, United States Marine Corps. This is Steve Sampson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Until next week. 'Cause there ain't no doubt.